Well, hello, everybody. Good evening. And this is Emmy After Dark, where we talk about everything paranormal. So, today we are going to talk about premonitions. And I don't think I've had one, or maybe I have had one, I just didn't realize it. But maybe the closest thing I can relate to a premonition is having a dream. And at the time, we just had two kids. One was in elementary school, and the other one was a newborn. But I had a dream one night. Gals, I just sent you the link. And yes, I know I'm bad. I forgot. But I sent you the link. It should be in your Gmail. I can send it to you again. Um, had a dream, and there was a baby with brown hair. And at the time, we were planning not to have any more children. So I was like, what is this other baby doing? And do you know what happened about close to 2 years? Because my kids are 2 years apart. We welcomed baby number, two for us, but
Okay,
three
I'm here.
total. Hey, girls, it's premonitions.
Okay, can you hear me? Is everything go good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
We're
so
live.
woohoo. Okay, go with your premonition, and I've got a couple personal ones that I can actually tell too.
Ooh, okay. So I found a couple. Let's see. A couple disaster premonitions.
Ooh.
And this is why I don't like transportation of any kind or roller coasters because I just know something's going to happen. Something crazy. Okay. The Aberfan disaster. On the morning of 21st October 1966, the Welsh mining village of Aberfan suffered one of Britain's worst peacetime catastrophes. Sudden with heavy rain, a huge heap of, I'm gonna like butcher these names. I can't even say it. Colliery? Is it colliery?
Yeah,
Waste.
it's basically it's a coal mine.
Okay. Suddenly slid down a mountain slope, obliterating everything in its path. A local junior school was utterly engulfed by this roaring black avalanche with 116 children skilled. It tragically transpired that many residents had already raised concerns about the safety risks of waste being piled high over the schools. But did some locals literally see the disaster coming? According to one bereaved family, on the day before the avalanche, their 8-year-old son, Paul Davies, drew a group of figures digging into a hillside with the words, "The End," written above them. Meanwhile, in the run up to the disaster, a 10-year-old girl named Earl Mae Jones reportedly told her mother she wasn't afraid to I, in that she dreamt something black had come down on her school. Like Paul, she eyed that terrible day. These stories were collected by psychiatrist and researcher John Barker, who was inspired to create an organization dedicated to tracking such visions known as the Premonitions Bureau. Ooh, I didn't know that.
I actually just pulled up the Wikipedia thing on the British Premonitions Bureau.
Oh, tell us about it.
Okay, so with that Aberfan thing, it is very tragic. Most people mainly speak about the young girl that witnessed that kept dreaming of it, and still went to school and died in it. So yeah, So basically, the Premonitions Bureau was established in 1966 by a man named John Baker. It only lasted 2 years. Its purpose was for psychic research, which makes me wonder if it's kind of linked to like the MK Ultra research and stuff like that. Um, its main field was parapsychology. So in the 18 months the Premonitions Bureau was open, nearly 1,000 reports of premonitions were collected. And while a few seemed to foretell disasters, over 90% failed to predict future events and none prevented any disasters. So, John Baker worked as a psychiatrist at the Shelton Hospital, a Victorian asylum housing people considered unfit to live in society. While Baker pushed for reforms to improve their conditions there, he engaged in unconventional research such as aversion therapy, which used electric shocks to discourage undesirable behavior, including addiction to homosexuality, transvestism. I wonder if that's also the same place where they did the thing where they would send women who masturbated as well, and they did something to the sensitive part of the female anatomy and removed it to try and make them more docile. Ugh, it's that still makes me run cold. Um, Barker was a member of the Society for Psychical Research and was interested in unorthodox ideas, especially in apparent prophecies. Around the time the Aberfan disaster in Wales occurred, Barker was working on a book called Scared to Death. Earlier, the head of psychology at Harvard Medical School, Walter Cannon, coined the term voodoo death to describe a response of primitive people dying of fear based on Cannon's concept. Barker argued that hearing a premonition of one's death may result in a deep fear which could affect the body's immune system and result in death. After the disaster, he heard of a boy who had escaped Aberfan but later died of shock. Hmm. That makes me wonder if things like seeing omens of death could technically be a part of your brain telling you that you're going to die. Like thinking you see, like, the Black Hound or
Like a black crow.
yeah, things like that. That's something. That's a rabbit hole I will have to write down and go and investigate later. Hold on, give me 2 seconds. So it said Barker visited the Aberfourn disaster site and noted the number of people seemed to escape death by coincidence, such as they're missing their bus or slipping in late, which surprisingly happened to a lot of people for 9/11 too. Um, but I will get into that one shortly. Bereaved families spoke about dreams and portents. On the eve of the disaster, a young boy named Paul Davies had reportedly drawn figures digging in the hills. Yeah, that's what you just said. Um, was a young girl called Errol May Jones who told she was not afraid to die 2 weeks before the collapse. A different account of the girl was later published by Barker. In this version, which she'd been signed by her parents and attested by a local mirror, Jones told the mother about the dream where she went to school and the school wasn't there because something black had come down all over it. Next day, the girl was among the dead. That's the story I've heard with the girl. While touring Aberfan and hearing various stories of foreboding, Barker wanted to investigate whether claims could be evidence of precognition, and he contacted science journalist for London in the Evening Standard, Peter Farley. They invited newspaper readings to contact Barker with the dreams and forebodings. While Barker and Farley received a large number of responses, they were aware of the reports had little value as evidence of precognition because they were created after the event. Um, it does go into a lot more with the formation of the bureau and everything like that. But it's like what I want to get into with this is the how a lot of people came out afterwards to tell their stories of how close things were for them. Like as I said, I did bring up the 9/11 one deliberately because there were so many celebrities that missed flights or whatever. The main one being uh the guy that created Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane.
Oh, I have a story for you about missing flights or not missing flights. So I was in the big sandbox in Iraq, and I left country early. Um, and this is very, I left country early because I found out I was pregnant. Okay. I partied a little bit too hard before I left for war. Um, so I had to leave country. Well, in the process of doing that, I had a medical emergency and I had to be flown out to Germany. Well, it turns out if I had stayed in country, the place where I was at was bombed 30 days later.
So you would have still been there.
So I would have still been there and I probably would have not made it home.
So it looks like the partying did save your life, even though, unintended consequences.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Like,
Oddly. Oddly, it did.
like,
And the
mm,
medical emergency, I was supposed to, like, I was hemorrhaging. Like, I was hemorrhaging, like, at the airport. That was the medical emergency. And they couldn't get an IV in me, they couldn't get a line in me. Oh my, yeah, it was horrific. And my pregnancy was not supposed to survive. Like, but he survived and he's here, and there's a lot of people around the world who had nothing but well wishes for me, and his name is based off of that experience.
yeah, surprisingly, like, you would think that with all the stuff that happens with airplanes, there'd be better medical crew on hand. Like, because my mother told me when she was fleeing my father when I was two, because my mother had moved up to Queensland and lived with my father. So after I was born and everything, yeah, she stuck around for a little while. But when she was fleeing him after a violent outburst, apparently I got on the flight. That was my very first flight, and my mum, knowing I was asthmatic and not very well, apparently halfway through the flight, or like on their just at the apex of where they're just about to level out, my lungs collapsed it like on the flight. And to this day, she still won't tell me what the hell happened. And like I can't even dig up articles because it was that long ago.
Did they like give you a, did they cut you and give you a modified chest tube?
I don't know why I don't have any marks on my body that would indicate that they gave me like a tube or anything. You got to remember, this is back. This would have been 1982, so the technology wouldn't have been that impressive.
Well, I know, but all you would need is a scalpel and a pen
Yeah,
just
no,
to relieve the
I
pressure.
don't have a tracheotomy. I heard it's kind of weird. I heard someone like it's. I've always known it as a tracheotomy, but that's when they cut into the tracheal tube to help you breathe. But I heard it mentioned the other day on a TV show as a crickenotomy or something. I'm like, what the frick is that?
A thoracotomy?
No, a crick. They called it a crick.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, that doesn't sound right because that doesn't sound like it's got anything to do with the throat where you're actually doing the inserting. And yeah, I know it's rare, but just no. So yeah,
Yeah,
I've what.
no, my ex-husband is a throat goat. So, I mean, he's seen some stuff, but he hasn't seen that.
Sorry, that could be taken in so many different ways. Um,
I know. I got you.
yeah. considering I've hung around that many ENT places because of my the hearing stuff, you tend to hear some like god awful stuff occasionally. And yeah, being a throat goat, that's a new one for me. But even I'm like, a certain friend of mine would really like to have fun with that one. Sorry.
But come on. I mean, it does make sense if you're in respiratory therapy. It's
Yeah,
disgusting, but it makes sense.
yeah. A lot of nurses and doctors have very warped sense of humors, and yeah, like as an ex nurse myself, I got to admit, I definitely have a warped sense of humor.
Well, I
I did.
mean, like, how else are you supposed to cope? I mean, we're on edge like what, 12 hours a day? You
Yep.
know, something goes sideways. It's something goes sideways and we go to jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the other thing I don't understand. If you're performing and saving someone's life, you shouldn't be hit with a charge where you have been end up in jail. That it just seems so wrong on so many levels.
Well, I mean, we have the Good Samaritan Act, but you know, like any other, one little slip up and you get, you're liable for something, you know?
Yeah, I know. That's kind of why like I don't understand like with the way your system is set up. Like so here in Australia, I'm pretty sure if you go into the medical fields, if you're like Army, Navy, Air Force, or whatever, and you come out with a medical degree in that field, it automatically translates to real life, afterwards. But I've heard in the States that, your Navy Corps for their medical field, that doesn't happen. But whereas the Army and Air Force, it does. It doesn't make any sense to me. You'd think it'd be the same across the board.
You mean like Carmen go and can become nurses
Yeah,
or PAs or surge techs?
yeah. And like, yeah, if they do that in the Navy, it doesn't count in real life. Whereas if you did that in the Air Force or thingo, it does. It's stupid because it's the same training.
Yeah, that is true. You know, I
But
didn't find out about the medical side until I had signed my contract with the Marine Corps. And then I was like, oh, I want to be that. And they're like, you can't. That's the Navy. And I'm like, what? Like, man, that's what I get for like not looking at my options, you know?
yeah, that's what they're saying. If it ever comes to a draft again, like I would love to help out, but I know with my medical stuff, like I would just go, hey, look, don't ask me to pick up a rifle and shoot people because I won't do that. But if you want me to work in the medical side of it, because that's where I do have training, I will gladly go back and do that.
Yeah, I would probably go back to the medical side. I mean, there's nothing, well, maybe I think I could still be drafted. Like I don't know. But like I know they upped the age. So now it's like 44. So I still have 4 years. Um my kiddo was talking about enlisting. Actually, he made me like really proud. He was like, "Mom, do you want me to follow in your footsteps and like go into the Marine Corps and then become a nurse?" I was like so proud because he could have been like following in his dad's
Mm.
footsteps, but he chose to follow in mine. So I'm gonna take that moment.
Yeah, just go. Hey, look at the options of what they can actually give you, and make sure whatever it is that you go for, when you get your discharge papers, you can take that into real life and still have that as a backup. That's what he needs to really look at, which I think should be explained more when they
Yeah.
go to
Do you know
recruit.
what I ended up being in the Marine Corps? I
No
wanted to
idea.
be an air traffic controller. I ended up being a field radio operator. That doesn't translate into the real world
Mm.
at all.
But that's why I think. like not just your army, but all the armies around the world need to freaking start doing that. If you want us to give 4, 8, 12 years of our lives or whatever to defending the country, and you want us to train in this special, make sure we can use that stuff outside of freaking dingo, so we're not reliant on potentially falling into the homeless vet type thing. You know.
I don't disagree with you.
But anyway, let's go back to the premonition stuff. So I did bring up that MacFarlane um,
Yes.
thing. So as we know, he's the creator of Family Guy. He also worked on The Simpsons. He also does The Orville, which is by far the better version of Star Trek that we'll ever get. Um, Narrowly avoided being on American Airlines Flight 11 on September 11, 2001, which was the first plane to hit the World Trade Center. He missed the flight due to a hangover, a wrong itinerary provided by his travel agents, and arriving 10 minutes late to the gates. So apparently he'd been out drinking the night before with his former colleague in Rhode Island, and was like completely hungover. And the travel agent mistakenly told him to be there by 8:15 rather than 7:45. Uh, yeah. So apparently he went to sleep in the airport lounge only to wake up with news of the attack. So yeah. I know there were other celebrities that came out with other stories, but I can't really find them at the moment. Like for me, I remember I'd gotten off work doing a night shift for the nursing home I was at, and like we're allowed to sleep on duty for like an hour or two, just middle of the night, nothing's gonna happen. They're like go sleep, and I remember having really bad nightmares of something hitting something and exploding. By the time I got home and turned on the news, I was turned on the news just in time to watch that first tower fall. And I was in disbelief over that. Now, I do know there are a lot of other psychics that came out to say that the night before the attacks happened, there were a lot of people dreaming of that. Now, I don't know whether that's just because of that latent mankind psychic shields that I've discussed before. People were tapping into that as a premonition, because I do know I've had several other times in the past where you know I've been out with my uncle, like taking a day off TAFE and going out with my uncle to help deliver tires for Harvey Norman, and he had a Pantech truck, so we would put all the tires on the back and everything, and there was a couple of times where the night before I would wake up having nightmares of something hitting the truck, and lo and behold, what would happen that day? We would get hit. So I think there is a valid thing for that happening, like for certain people, but I don't know why it happens. It's kind of weird, but yeah.
There's a book that talks about like visualizing your destiny, and it'll happen, or putting the energy out, or doing like a dream board and focusing on that. Do you think that it's possible that bad guys were focusing on their plan and other people picked up on it? Because didn't they, I'm assuming that, before you would do something like that, you would, I don't know, pray to a deity or something, you know?
Uh, well, I won't say it's I will say it's a possibility, because basically anything and everything could be with the way the world is. Um, but I'm wondering if a lot of people were like picking up on certain things here, there, and everywhere, and as those little bits were talking out, it was becoming a bigger thing as it got picked up into that psychic. um, storm of whatever going around, a lot more people were picking it up, and yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, it's a fascinating phenomenon. I think something similar happened with the Titanic, where a few people had premonitions.
Yep. I actually listened to a podcast today that um, from that chapter podcast, they were talking about a whaling ship, the one that actually inspired Moby Dick. And there was a guy that, when they got to one of the South African countries, he basically just went, "Yeah, no, I'm not getting back on board. Something's gonna happen," and he's just like, "No," and he just walked away. But I know with the ship one, there's another case of another guy. There was a ship that was on its way. I think it was around the world tour. Um, it got the ship ended up sinking due to a hurricane in. It was off the coast. It was off the coast of South Africa, like the eastern coast. But before it got there, a couple of the people were like having bad dreams about it, and they got off at the port before the ship went down.
I mean, that's gotta, man, that's gotta be a heavy experience. A heavy experience.
Yeah, like that would freak me the hell out if, because I've been on like a long voyage, and like I 2 weeks going on the Fair Star to like Suva, Numia, and all that kind of stuff. Those ships, despite rough seas and all that kind of stuff, are fairly stable. If you're having dreams to the point where you know something's going to happen and you get off, like it must have been a hell of a powerful dream to make you go, yeah, no, I'm done. I just can't.
Yeah, it would have had to been like a night terror or something.
Mm.
But I do have a Titanic story.
Yep.
Speaking of the sinking of the Titanic, did an obscure writer named Morgan Robertson have a vision of the Titanic disaster? He denied that anything supernatural had taken place, but the fact remains that in 1898, more than 14 years before the Titanic sank, he published a book called, is that Fealty? The focus of the book was an ocean liner which is said to be unsinkable, doesn't have enough lifeboats, and goes down into the cold waters of the North Atlantic after colliding with an iceberg. The name of the ship? The Titan. There are also accounts of passengers and almost passengers on the actual Titanic who felt inexplicably fearful about the journey. One was Alex McKenzie, whose story was told by his grandson, Lan Henderson, in 2012, a century after the disaster. As Henderson told the press, McKenzie had been walking along the gangway to the ship at Southampton docks when he distinctly heard a voice telling him not to get on board. The spectral warning was repeated, and Mackenzie was so spooked that he turned around and headed straight back to his native Scotland, much to the incredulity of his parents, who splurged a lot of money to get him a sought after ticket. They were shocked for a very different reason when news of the tragedy broke later. I also have one from 9/11. Says another man who seemed to have sensed the coming of the world shaking tragedy was Iman McEney, a financial services professional whose office was at New York World Trade Center. He suffered a sudden bout of vertigo while he was leaving for work on the morning of 11th September 2001. This strange moment came after a long period of foreboding for Iman, who had predicted he wouldn't survive the year 2001 and had grown increasingly anxious about a terrorist strike on the World Trade Center. But despite the vertigo and his wife saying he should stay home, Eamon decided to carry on his day as normal. He died in the attacks.
There's actually several to do with 9/11. There was a guy that was blind and had a guide dog. He noticed the guide dog was acting off like the night before, so he went in early to do his stuff. And because he went in early, the guide dog was able to guide him out safely. He says it was the dog's intuition that something wasn't right that ultimately ended up saving not only his life but several others, because several others followed him down the stairs to escape.
Wow, that's incredible. That needs to be studied.
They actually have done that with like with a few dogs like who have been through training for that kind of stuff. They pick up other skills and they're trying to figure out how they're doing that, and in order to try and save, like to try and teach those skills to other um, service animals to help the people that they're going with, which is really really interesting. So I did bring up some more stuff to do with the Titanic premonitions and cancellations. What was the name of the guy that you were talking about for that?
Mackenzie,
Okay, yeah, that's Alex McKenzie. Okay, that's the second one. Who they said he reported hearing a voice telling him not to board. He turned around and went back to Scotland. You've got Isaac Freyendall, a first-class passenger who had a recurring vivid nightmares of a large steamship colliding and sinking. Despite his apprehension, he boarded the Titanic, but his uneasy feelings were so pronounced he shared his concerns with others before the disaster. Esther Hart, the mother of survivor Eva Hart, was so overcome with a premonition that the unsinkable ship was flying in the face of God that she refused to sleep at night, keeping her family alert, ensuring their quick reactions when the iceberg was hit. J. Conan Middleton, a businessman who dreamed of the Titanic floating keel upward 10 days before she sailed. He dreamt it twice and was so uncomfortable that he cancelled his plans. Frank and Bertha Blankhorn, though often debated, an urban legend persists that this couple skipped their book journey due to a nightmare about dying in a violent event in that same year. W.T. Steed, a journalist who, years before the 1912 tragedy, wrote fiction accurately describing a sinking ship with massive loss of life due to shortage of lifeboats. He had a lifelong premonition of dying by drowning and actually boarded the Titanic. So the other notable instance, Ellen Vannon, 1909. In a separate incident, 95 years later, the Elan Vannon, a two-masted vessel, was brought to Whitehaven for repairs. On the very day of its arrival, it began sinking of its own, a precursor to it later breaking apart in 2004. Some of which was some which some in the community framed within the context of omens. The unsinkable mythos. The hubris surrounding the Titanic's deemed unsinkability is often cited as a contributing factor to the emotional uneasiness experienced by passengers who did not believe a ship could be immune to disaster. Um, so it does have some contextual explanations here. Precognitive dreams. Numerous accounts of people dreaming of a ship breaking apart or finding themselves in cold water before the event. Psychological intuition. Some observers, like W.T. Stead, with their experts in maritime safety, and recognize the lack of safety precautions rather than having a supernatural premonition. And after the fact stories. Many of the accounts are classified by skeptics as post disaster stories, aka salvation stories, created by those who survived or missed the boat.
Dude, talk about butterfly effect.
Yeah. Although I'm still laughing about that now in regards to Ashton Kutcher, because everything coming out about him and Diddy and being in part of the freak offs and all that kind of stuff. So him sitting there turning around going, "Oh, but we've been trying to help save all the kids, save all the kids." Meanwhile, you find out he's been just as bad as Diddy and freaking everything else. So, and same as Marston. So that's a butterfly effect. I don't think a lot of people saw coming.
Uh, I did not even know that about Ashton Kutcher. Um,
Mm,
Marston, they had that trial, and I think he's trying to appeal. At least that's what I heard. But
yep. Although
that's going up against a
here's another one for Ashton Kutcher. He was dating a girl. He was supposed to bring her to one of the award nights, and something happened, and he missed picking her up. She ended up later on getting killed that night.
oh my god,
Yeah,
that's horrific. Oh my god,
yeah. I'll see if I can bring it up.
that's yeah. You know what? I ended up texting a friend was supposed to come over for like decorating ornaments and stuff like that.
Mm,
And she was late. And so I texted her. I said, "You better not be lying in a ditch, Ed, somewhere, right?" And then the next day I found out that she passed away.
yikes. That's yeah. So in 2001, Ashton Kutcher's acquaintance, girlfriend, Ashley Ellerin, was murdered by serial killer Michael Gargulio, known as the Hollywood Ripper. Kutcher was supposed to pick her up for a date to take her to one of the award ceremonies, but arrived late and found the house dark, not realizing she'd been killed just before his arrival.
Oh my God. That means if
Kutcher
he was
apparently saw.
early.
Yeah, he apparently Kutcher said, he saw what he thought were red wine stains and left, not knowing they were her blood.
Oh my God. He
Mm.
could, if he would arrive like 5 minutes sooner, it could have been him or both of them. Oh my
Yep.
God.
Yeah. Um, but seeing how you brought up the RMS Titan and the RMS Titanic, I've got another one for you. It's very similar. So
Another Titanic?
not quite. I
Okay.
mean, I mentioned the book that helped create Moby Dick and whatnot. Um, the story of the whaling ship from Nantucket. So every time I hear that song, I hear the Billy Joel song going off in my head. Um, so in 1838, Edgar Allan Poe published the narrative Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, featuring the cabin boy named Richard Parker, who was cannibalized after a shipwreck. 46 years later, in 1884, the yacht Mignoyet sank, and the crew killed and ate a cabin boy named Richard Parker to survive. This uncanny real life echo of his fiction is considered one of literature's most famous coincidences. Uh, so it says the key details of the coincidence. So the novel in 1838, the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, four survivors of a wrecked ship are stranded in a lifeboat, resorted to killing and eating cabin boy Richard Parker. In reality, 1884. The yacht sank with the four men on board. The three older crew members killed and ate the cabin boy, also named Richard Parker, who was sick after drinking seawater. Both cases involved four people on a boat. Desperate scenario, no food. Section of the cabin boy had to be sacrificed with others to survive. The real life survivors were tried for murder in the landmark case R.V. Dudley and Stevens, which established that necessity is not a defense for murder.
That is wild.
Yeah, there
That's
is a whole heap of other ones like that. If you just look up coincidences and stuff like that, like even just hearing that story about the ship from, I'll see if I can bring it up on YouTube. Hold on. Let's get out of that.
that's
Where's
wild. I got time for one more story, then I got to skedaddle.
Yep.
Are you gonna be available tomorrow?
Should be. So
Okay.
yeah, so the one that I actually watched today on that chapter podcast was or that chapter, the sinking and cannibalism of the Essex. It's like nearly an hour long. It's one hell of a story. It really ropes you in because you're like, what the hell?
I'll have to look it up.
Oh yeah, and I think on that channel, like that chapter podcast and all that, where he does it with his sidekick, the stories are insane. Although if you can listen to the viewer stories, and yeah, some of that makes you wonder what the hell is going on.
I ask myself that question every day.
Yeah, I do that with my health.
All right. Do you want to share another one last one?
Uh, well, seeing as how we've done coincidence, we can keep going with coincidence. Oh, actually, we'll bring the coincidence up next time. Uh, let's have a look. We got Aberfan. Well, we've got. I can dig into the Abraham Lincoln's death because we all know about that one. The where he saw himself dead before he actually was.
I love that one. I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on. Let me dig that one out then. Um, got to spell it right. So, thankfully, this one's short but sweet. About 3 days before his I don't have my teeth in, so it sounds like I'm lisping. Um, Before his assassination on April 14th in 1865, Abraham Lincoln told his bodyguard Ward Hill Lamnon of a vivid, disturbing dream where he heard mourning in the White House and found a body on a Cadillac in the East Room. I have no idea what that is. I will Google that afterwards. In the East Room, and was told by a soldier that the president was killed by an assassin. So, key details of the premonition, the dream. Lincoln described wandering the White House, hearing horrible sobbing. But seeing no mourners, he finally entered the East Room, where he saw a body covered with the funeral vestments guarded by soldiers. In the dream, Lincoln asked the soldier who is dead in the White House. The soldier replied, the president. He was killed by an assassin. Lincoln told this story to several friends and family members, including his wife, Mary, leaving him strangely annoyed and deeply troubled for days. Um, so, Lincoln was under immense stress at the end of the Civil War, and the dream may have reflected his awareness of threats against his life. The account is primarily known through Ward Hill's Lamont's 1895 memoir, which was recorded the story as told by Lincoln himself. While some see it as a supernatural premonitions, others view it as a manifestation of an exhausted mind anticipating the high dangers of his position. If I remember reading correctly, there was something about him like seeing like a green, eerie smoke to that, or that might have been when Winston Churchill was visiting and saw Abraham Lincoln.
No, I think it was the green smoke. I think you're right the first time.
Yeah. Um, Why did that change to pheronology smoke? God damn. My spelling must be that bad. Mm. Yeah, not the only thing it's coming up with is saying that the smoke when he was assassinated, the smoke from the gun appeared to be devilish red due to gaslighting, not green. So I'm wondering. I'll have to see if I can dig more in that. But yeah. So what do you want to do tomorrow? We can do coincidences because there's a lot of coincidental dental stuff that'd be interesting to go into.
Oh, I am so down for that. Yes.
Yep. We can do that.
All right, I'll send you a link.
Yep.
And I'll see you tomorrow night. Don't Stay safe, don't get sick. Um,
I'm trying to get over the crap that was going on. Stupid doctors have no idea. My podiatrist blamed the medication they gave me that was causing the issues, but the hospital was like, "No, it's not the medication we gave you. It wasn't that fault." So, yeah, I'm more inclined to believe my podiatrist over the doctors on this one.
it's healthcare and it's a never ending fight. Blame goes all around.
Yeah, but right now I'm gonna go cook my yakitori pepper pork bites, and I'm going to
I
enjoy them for
friggin'
dinner.
hate you.
Don't worry, I'll send you photos.
Oh, I'm sure I doubly hate you. I'm sure you will. Okay. All right.
Bye.
And a recipe.
I don't have the recipe for that. I bought it from the butcher. It was already pre-made and seasoned.
Fine. I'll have to Google it.
Bye.
Bye.